Welcome to episode 2 of POLYPATCH with Polydata on the Polyphonic Prophet-5. Today we're going to look at creating a fifths patch where the two oscillators are tuned a fifth apart. And we're specifically going to look at recreating the patch from my track from the last year's Polydata full-length album called Tapestry, and the track is called Dyer. And we're not going to focus on getting the patch exactly the same necessarily, because that's kind of not the point of this series. We're kind of going to think about what is the music that patch is playing and what's the context, and we're kind of going to go through the thinking to create an appropriate patch for that music in a similar fashion. Because we could spend so much time doing little tweaks, but I feel like that's kind of beside the point. We're kind of just going on a journey to create a sound and seeing what kind of decisions we need to take into consideration, and maybe how to think about it and how to approach it. An interesting fact is, for the actual recording of this track, I used a plugin. I did not use the Prophet-5, and that was the case for much of the synthesizers on that album. Not because I didn't want to use my actual vintage Prophet-5, but the amount of time it would take me to learn all the parts by hand my schedule and the time to finish the album when I wanted to finish it, there was no way. My key skills are okay, but it would take me a long time to be able to play them really flawlessly the way I would want it to be. And this unit doesn't have MIDI. So this track is an example of, I was using the Arturia Prophet-5V, which is actually based on a Rev 2, I believe. And still sounded good. I'm working on another album now, and it's going to be done differently. I'm just kind of playing almost everything by hand, and if it needs to be simpler, that's fine too. And it's also taking a lot longer, but that's okay. So yeah, just thought I'd mention that if you're comparing the sound of this to the original. So let's start off with we got one sawtooth on oscillator A. A really basic patch here, and let's bring in oscillator B, also on sawtooth, and so we're going to now tune oscillator B 1/5 higher. So there it is, and we want to keep the tuning pretty rock solid. We don't want to add any fine. It kind of gives that phasing, and that's not the vibe we're going for here. So you can already tell it's sounding closer to the patch from Dyer, but it's extremely bright, so we're gonna bring the cutoff down some, and that's dark, a little bit too dark. And if you listen to that track and kind of think about the rhythm of it, there is a bit of filter envelope that kind of gives it that bounce and kind of propels it a bit and gives it some movement. So we're going to adjust the envelope here and the envelope amount to kind of give it that kind of vibe, that kind of rhythmic feel, and I don't know, pumping or flowing, whatever you want to call it. But this right now, the sustain is at max, so it's a bit static. It just kind of goes up and then goes down. And I think we want to have the sustain a little bit less and bring the decay down, so it kind of goes up and then falls a bit. Maybe we can exaggerate it a bit just to hear the effect a little clearer. So you can hear it goes, like in the brightness, it kind of goes up and goes down a bit. you can really hear it as you sustain the chord also. Okay, so that's a bit much though. So okay, and also it's not, the attack is not 0. It's not kind of instantaneous transient like that. It kind of fades in a bit. Yeah, that's sounding pretty good. And I want to add a bit of resonance here. So resonance is just a really interesting parameter because it can do different things based on the rest of the settings. You know, if you have the filter cutoff is somewhere higher in the frequency spectrum, like you have a lot of envelope going to your cutoff, or the cutoff is just kind of high, the resonance tends to add a lot of sizzle up top. But if it's a bit more of a closed filter sound, then of course the resonance follows the cutoff point. So it can actually emphasize the lower end of the frequency spectrum, depending how everything is set and depending how your envelope is and everything. So this is really something to think about when you're making a patch, because, you know, with one setting you can say, oh, that resonance is adding a lot of sizzle. It's adding a lot of that high air frequencies. But then in another case, the same resonance setting is really giving it a lot of heft and beef. So it's something to consider when you're making a patch. So another thing is, we don't want our amplifier envelope to be instant either. There's a bit of like a volume swell. So we want to... Okay, so that's kind of getting there. And it's cutting, the release is cutting off right away, which matches the rhythm a bit, but it's a bit too abrupt. It just, as soon as you let go, it goes away. So we want to give it a little bit of release. But we don't want it to blend in too much to the next chord where the release is really long. We want it to kind of move out of the way. And actually having 5 voices helps with that too, because as soon as you hit another, hit your next chord, it steals all the voices. So it's good for not getting things muddy. Oh, that's sounding good. So again, like if you saw the last episode, we know that the relationship between the 2 releases can give us very diverse results. So here you can see the filter closes faster than the amplifier, so we kind of hear that wow, wow before the volume goes away. But then if we turn it up, then we just basically hear the volume going down, because this is still lasting longer than this one. So let's give it a little bit longer here. That's too long. And I think for this one, we want the sustain to be full, because we kind of have this bit of movement here, because it kind of takes the energy away. If we, even though this sounds super cool. Yeah, it's the cool rhythmic thing, but it takes too much energy away for this particular kind of sustained chords. So we want to just keep the sustain full. So another aspect of this patch is a subtle LFO movement here on both oscillators with a triangle wave. So we want to dial that in. just a subtle movement. We don't really want it to be noticeable in this particular instance, even though it sounds cool when it's noticeable. In this situation, we don't want it to really detract, just to give it a little bit of movement. It kind of makes it where, it's slow, and then each time you hit the chord, it's not so precisely the same tuning. It's very slightly different, and it really just makes it a bit tastier. But so I think that's sounding really good. It sounds very similar to the album. I have a room reverb from the Ableton hybrid reverb on the actual album. There's a very short room. It's almost like not even, it's you don't really hear a tail. It's more of like the timbre, almost just modifying the timbre a bit and giving it a little bit of width, stereo width, and all, the mix is down a bit, but that's also part of the sound. So here we're just hearing it dry, but I think we met our objective here to really create a patch that fits the music and is appropriate for the music that's been written and the context. Yeah. Catch you next time on the next episode of POLYPATCH, and remember, the Polydata Store has lots of sound banks available for all kinds of plugins and hardware synths. You can download sound banks and load the patches into your soft synths or your hardware synths. So check the link in the description for the store, the online store, and you can also check out Polydata music, including this particular track, in the Polydata Bandcamp or on streaming services. See you next time.